Hi, this is Ryan DeMay from Field Source. We're going to walk through converting an existing athletic field from a cool season grass over to Bermudagrass here in Ohio. Now, the same principles apply on a new construction as well, and we can isolate and talk a little bit more about how that might be different going through construction. But for the intents and purposes of this presentation, we'll talk about converting an existing field. All right, so this is an existing field at Pickerington North High School in Pickerington, Ohio. An older field that had been about at this point just a little under 20 years old, moderate maintenance, but nothing high end. And so the decision was made to convert over to Bermudagrass, higher performance playing surface, and one that could handle more traffic, more wear, drain better, and be more durable. So the process begins by removing the existing grass that's on the field. This is accomplished with the machine that mills the field out, just very similar to how asphalt pavement would get milled out in a parking lot prior to it being replaced. So this is a really important step because we don't want to till the field up super deep and have a bunch of air pockets and voids and things like that that might settle later on and affect the grade of the field and how uniform that is. So this process removes just the grass and a little bit of thatch that's underneath of there and allows the surface of the soil to be exposed. This gives us the best possible chance to get the right grade on the subgrade and then move forward from there. So as you'll see in this next step here. Okay, so the soil has been removed, and at this point, this surface is lightly scratched up, not tilled, but just lightly scratched up on the top so that we can laser grade this soil, which will now be our subgrade. It'll be what everything else is resting on from this point forward. We're trying to make sure that the crown is very good and also make sure that our goalposts line up correctly, that we have 10 feet under those across the front side of the crossbar. So making huge grade adjustments can be problematic in these cases. So if we do have to do that, and especially in a new construction where we're setting grades and things like that, or there's no goalpost, we'll set those grades a little bit differently. But in a conversion, it's really critical that we maintain the integrity of that goalpost without necessarily having to reset it, if at all possible. All right, so the next step is a process that's known as sand slit drainage. And this process basically cuts in a 1-inch wide by 7 to 8 inch deep slit in the ground, and these are spaced out 10 inches on center. And what this allows the water to do is it goes through the top layer of our field, allows it to get down in the soil, percolate, and disperse out. So this is giving us the drainage capacity basically to hold an additional about 30,000 gallons of water inside the field below the surface of the field. And the number one thing with athletic field drainage is about getting water off the surface, whereas in agriculture, for example, we're more worried about seepage drainage, which is underground drainage, taking water and lowering the water table. In this particular case, this helps us get water off the soil, or off the surface rather, and down into the soil. Okay. Now, the next step after the sand slits are installed is, this is one method that we do it. This is probably the highest end method here. There's ways to do this without incorporating the sand on top. However, this gives us the maximum amount of playability, durability, so we can withstand a bunch of games, and then also, ease of use after or during a rainfall without fear of tearing up the surface. Okay, so this layer of sand is a minimum of 2 inches deep. Sometimes we'll go as thick as 3, depending on the situation and how durable the field needs to be. But this is the same sand that's used to build putting greens on golf courses and high-end athletic fields like you see in Major League Baseball or the NFL, things like that. So again, the idea here is that the sand acts as a way for water to quickly pass down through the surface, but also hold enough moisture in there that we can grow grass, without having to water it, millions and millions of gallons a year. So it's a nice balance between those two ends of the spectrum there. So the next step after this is all graded out is actually installing the Bermudagrass, and this is done by a process that's known as sprigging. So you'll notice there on the tractor, it's pulling an implement that's taking a big 42-inch wide roll of sod and unrolling it and then grinding it up into small individual plant parts, okay? Those are then disked in very, very lightly. We don't want them pushed too far down, and those go down into the sand. And sand makes the best growing medium for this stuff. We can push it down into soil if we don't add the sand cap, as we call it. We can do it into soil as well. Again, what we lose in a soil installed situation is, again, those drainage characteristics of the sand and the sand slits that help us get water off the surface more quickly, play more games, and be more durable before, during, and after rains as well. All right, so once our sprigs are all in, again, you'll notice all these individual plant parts. They turn brown. They turn to a color that looks like they've been, yanked apart and left in the hot sun. At this point, we're watering these very, very heavily and trying to keep them moist. And keeping individual plant parts moist on a big sandbox is kind of difficult. So, we'll see this look where there's, puddled and standing water out there in the field for at least the first 3 or 4 weeks, just trying to keep these individual plant parts moist. Now, we do have to dry down from time to time to apply fertilizer and other things to get the individual plants and these sprigs moving and growing. So this is a case where we've shut the water off here for about half a day, and are going to go out there and try to fertilize this field as it's starting to grow in. So it doesn't look like much is happening, and this was what it looks like for the first, again, about 3 or 4 weeks. And then just as the clock strikes 4 weeks, you're starting to see these individual plant parts push out into grass plants, okay? And eventually what this does is just knits together like a big carpet over time. So here we're looking at about that 4 to 5 week mark, and then coming back, this is just after the 6 week mark. So, we're, anywhere from 10 to 14 days between this photo and this photo right here. And if you'll notice over here on the side, we're doing the first mowing on this field. Mowing is a really, really critical component of getting this to establish quickly. The more you mow it, it stimulates growth, and especially lateral growth that helps it knit together and try to get, kind of caught up and into that carpet that we really want for an athletic field. All right, so again, this is just after the 6 week mark, after the first mow. Things are looking pretty good. I think this is on to, again, week 7 here, a couple mows in, and you notice that these gaps are closing up fairly quickly. The schedule here was very, very tight at this particular school because they had a very late season track meet that caused us to go out and do this basically through the Father's Day period. So the initial sprigging that you saw was done on June 26th. So again, we're about 7 weeks plus that over here. All right, so week 8, we're starting to really close the gap here. You'll notice again just a week's time in between this photo and this photo. So this stuff does move very, very quickly. Mowing it at this point during the grow-in period about 4 to 5 times a week, which seems like a lot, but during that growing period, it really does make a difference. Once we settle into a maintenance regime, 2 to 3 times a week is more than sufficient, even in peak growing weather. So again, you'll see that water flying. It's certainly something where we're dialing the water back at this point. Doing fertilizer treatments about once every 2 weeks to try and encourage growth, and also at this point controlling weeds and trying to keep weeds out of the grass here. All right, so this is week 8.5, 9, and we're about a week and a half out from the very first soccer and football game. So again, with a tight timeline, this was a 10-week grow-in. I'd recommend in most situations that you plan for 12 or 13. Again, the schedule on the front end of this project dictated that it was a very, very quick turnaround. And we had to do some things, again, with additional fertilizer treatments, and we honestly had really good weather. Temperatures here, what we're looking for is that really, really hot, hazy, and uncomfortable weather, and a lot of sunshine. So we're looking for temperatures in the daytime to be, near 90 or above. And really what generates a lot of growth from this stuff is when the nighttime lows stay above 70, and most especially above 75. That's when we see really, really good growth on this stuff. So again, looking here, again, we're about a week and a half out. And then finally here, this is 70 days. So you'll notice there's soccer lines on there, and there's also football lines as well. So this field hosted the JV and the varsity football team. It also hosted one freshman football game. In addition to that, they had boys and girls varsity and JV soccer that played on this. So in total, there was 48 events this first fall on this field here. So we'll kind of look through the season and see how things went there. This is the very first football game out there. And then same thing, very first football game. Again, very clean, very low cut. This surface is mowed at 1 inch height of cut. And again, here, this is after 2 weeks of football. This is their homecoming game. So this would have been week 4 or 5, I believe. Again, you're starting to see just a tiny bit of wear here down the middle. Penalty kick spot right here for soccer. And again, just trying to look and see how things are progressing. Again, looking right down the middle of the season here, week 4, week 5, things are holding up nicely overall. So we fast forward here, and now we're looking back the other direction. A couple weeks later, again, things looking pretty good here overall. From a timing standpoint, the thing that this field has is it has a small amount of overseed. So in some situations with warm season grass, particularly Bermuda grass, we can add in perennial ryegrass, which is a cool season grass, and overseed it into Bermuda as it goes dormant. You'll see professional fields like the Super Bowl field and things like that that use very, very high rates, upwards of 30 pounds of grass seed for every 1,000 square feet. That's an exceedingly high rate. This field here has about 7 pounds of grass seed, of that perennial ryegrass seed per 1,000 square feet. So a very low rate just to give us a little bit of green color and make sure that everything looks and plays well, especially down the middle where there's some extra wear. Now, in the present day, we don't do that as much anymore. We found that taking the ryegrass out, we have to use a chemical to spray that out the following summer and kill it off, and then so the Bermuda can grow back and be, just by itself, essentially. And that process is, one, costly seed to overseed it with, and then also the chemicals to spray it out with. Those herbicides are very expensive as well. So for a lot of reasons, mostly cost-related, is that we don't do that a lot anymore. And the other thing, too, that we've seen is we've got healthier Bermuda grass as a result of that. So, we're seeing better Bermuda grass conditions even as it starts to go dormant without doing the overseed, and that's helped out immensely year over year, having a good product. So this is October 20th, a week, I believe week 9 of the season here. So again, just with that little bit of overseed, and the Bermuda is still actually growing here. So you're seeing mostly Bermuda grass here with just a little bit of ryegrass. Again, looking exceedingly well. Looking out here across the hashes, towards the home sideline, the field just looks really, really good, really healthy. And again, at this point, it's played over 40 events at this point. So last week of the season here, this is playoff week that they had a home game. You can see they're out here painting for the football home game that week. And again, things are looking pretty good. They've held up right down the middle here very well. And overall, this field has done its job in terms of, playing through rain, playing a lot of events, and holding up and providing a good surface, especially in the high wear areas down the middle. So what you'll notice here is that the grass has started to go dormant. And you'll notice that mainly by the yellow color, obviously, and that is the Bermuda grass that's going dormant in the colder weather. So this is the first week of November. And you'll also notice, too, from those pictures right back here, it looks like, oh gosh, there's probably got to be a lot of that ryegrass, that cool season grass that you overseeded with out there that's making it look that green into late October. And the fact of the matter is that you'll see there's not a whole lot of ryegrass out there. This illustrates the point that, we didn't have a lot out there, and that was on purpose. We wanted to give the Bermuda every chance to grow the next year and not have to, spend a lot of money and time trying to remove it selectively the following year. So again, the Bermuda did great. It did exactly what it was supposed to do, and it's done this year after year in a variety of locations. As far north as Mount Gilead, Ohio, and as far south as Pickerington, Ohio. So we're seeing great results with it. It does have its limitations, and the things that we look for there are, coming out of winter to make sure that it hasn't died because of, extremely cold temperatures or, wild swings in temperatures. And in those cases, we know by the month of May what's going on and if we're going to need to make any repairs or if we're just going to allow it to kind of self-repair and grow itself back in, very similar to what you saw in these previous photos of how quickly it can close gaps. So with that, I'll ask if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and share those with me via email, but really appreciate you following along and listening a little bit to how this works, and we'll go from there. Thanks.